Welcome back to another episode of To the Aetherite, your one-stop watch for everything Final Fantasy XIV related. I'm your host, Super Saiyan Ginger, and in today's episode, we are going to be going over the 7 most useful UI settings and features in Final Fantasy XIV. As always, timestamps to each section of this video will be located in the comment section below. So with that out of the way, let's get to the video. Alright, so the first thing I want to go over in today's video is actually the map. I went over the starting cities in my last video. However, I wanted to do a little bit more in depth because I feel like I missed a lot of things. So right off the bat, if you're playing on PC, the way you open your map is just by hitting M on the keyboard. From this top left corner, you can drop down to all of the actual areas of the map, and you can click on them and it will just pull up their actual world map overview. From there, you can use the second drop down to select a specific point, or you could just go ahead and click on the area on the map itself. So one thing worth noting with the map is right now I have the Black Shroud pulled up, which is home of Gridania. If you actually go ahead and hit this drop down, you'll actually see all of the actual places you could go to. So New Gridania, Old Gridania, Central, Eastern, all the shrouds. And then below that, you'll actually have all of the dungeon maps as well located within here. However, to get to any area you want to be in, you can either use the drop down. And for instance, I'm located in the North Shroud, so I could hit the North Shroud button, or I could just click the North Shroud section of the map. Now, the general map overview will tell you everything you need to know about the land. So all of these purple icons, by now y'all know these are all going to be fates located within the world, and these will update and go away as according to when they're completed or whenever their times ran up. Another thing worth noting with the map, and I'm actually going to, I want to make it a little bit bigger here, because if you look in the top right corner up here, wherever you move your mouse on the map, it will actually give you coordinates of where your mouse currently is. So if you ever see something in chat or a mission tell you the coordinates, but for some reason you just can't find it on either the mini map or the map itself, just go ahead and hover your mouse over it and you'll actually be able to find it from there. Now, another thing with the map is if you actually pull up any journal entries that you currently have, and then you hit the map button, it's going to take you to wherever that destination is. So for me, this is in Gondos, where you can work on your Shadowbringer's relic. However, if I do go back to the North Shroud, you'll see that all of my fates and all of my side quests went away. The reason for this is because the map is only centralized on the current journal entry that I went ahead and selected, and isn't going to show me any other information. So if you are going to a story mission or anything, and you click the map button and then you beat the story mission and you look at your map again and you're like, wow, there's no fates or anything going on here, it's because you actually have to close out of your map and reopen it. And then you'll see that it's updated with all the latest information. That's one thing that actually messed me up a lot when I first started, and definitely one thing I can't stress enough. Whenever you use the map button from your journal, always close out of the map, reopen it to pull it up fresh with all of the information easy to display. I want to show you what it looks like when you see a friend in Final Fantasy that's not in a party with you, and how you can define them and tell them apart from the other players. However, I have no idea where they're located in Ralgar's Reach. There they are. Look at that. So you'll actually see them defined by the orange name plating, whereas everybody else is blue. This means they are in fact on your friends list. Y'all are just not in a party together. Now, if I go ahead and invite them to a party, you'll actually see on your map here, and again, I'll make it big for you, that regardless of where I run, you'll see a blue dot. And that blue dot is going to be where everybody in your party is located. And you'll be able to see that as long as y'all are in the same zone as them. So if I went and teleported to a different area and they were still here, I'd no longer see them on the map, even if I did come back and put my map on Ralgar's Reach. The last thing I want to go over is actually not in the map, but I'm associating it with the map because it's associated with travel. And that's actually going to be the teleport action. So you can actually locate this in your actions and traits. I'm 99% sure it's under general. Yeah, right here, your teleport. Whenever you activate this, it's just going to pop up a list of all of the aetherytes that you can actually teleport to that you've unlocked. The only reason I really mention this is because I actually have to go to the Doman Enclave to get to Gondos routinely. However, you'll see that the Doman Enclave is under Othard. But if I do the handy dandy method I mentioned before, to where I select the Othard map, and this is Stormblood for any of y'all who don't know, you'll see that under the drop-down menus, there's actually no way to get to Othard from the map itself. The only way I'd actually be able to get there is to go into the Yaxenia, teleport to the Namai Crystal, and then fly all the way down here to the Mercantile Docks, where there's actually a ferry that can take me there. Or I could just pull up the teleportation menu, hit the Doman Enclave, and be right on my way. So, with maps out of the way, the next thing I want to actually go ahead and tackle is chat features. Now, this is something I'm still learning, so I don't have everything perfected. However, I will pull up some screenshots and include them on the screen so you could pause it and look at everything. There will also be links below to all of this information as well for y'all. So, with the chat, there's actually a few options you have to choose from. I'm only really going to show you two because, again, I'll put up the full list and there will be a link to all of them down below. The best two options that you're really only going to use chat for is going to be for your current position and for targeting. So let's say this right here, and I'm too far away. So I have this guy targeted. So if I wanted to type in chat and let everybody know where this target is located, and I will just go ahead and shout this because I do not care. I'd want to go ahead and do the greater than sign, type POS for position, less than sign, space, greater than sign, T, less than sign. So what this is saying is it's going to tell chat to shout out the position and the target. Now, however, it is going to shout out my position and then say the target's name. However, because I'm right on top of it, it'll still work. So once you hit enter, you'll see that the North Shroud 24.3 by 27.4 has been marked, and you can see the target is a Mightling. So now if you actually type or click that link in chat, it will pull up the location of where that is with a little red flag on the map, and I will blow this up so you can see it a bit better. There's just a red flag here. And that will really only be useful for if you're doing fates that are like one giant mob boss that you know you'll need multiple people to take out, or if you're in either Eureka or Baja, where you going down, you have to get teleported back to the very beginning, and in Baja you'll actually lose metal for that. But that's a whole separate story. So that's just really useful to type in chat or shout that you need a party or you need a res, and then you just greater than sign POS, less than sign, no spaces, to give them your position. That way they know where to find you in those. The next thing you can do with chat is actually emote. So if you / type any emote, it'll just go ahead and do it for you. So you don't actually have to come over to the social tab, pull up your emotes, and sit here and scroll through all the ones you want. If you know what you want to do, just hit enter, / type in the name, and it will go ahead and do it. Okay, so the next thing I want to go over is Duty Finder. So in the top left, you'll see the Open Duty Finder settings icon. If you open that, there's a couple things you can do here. The first is you should always select join a party in progress. Now, truthfully, this is going to work 1 out of 10 times. However, what all it's doing is allowing you to join a duty that somebody might have left of from their own party and just fill you in their spot. So you could join in at the very beginning because somebody left, midway through, at the final boss, like you name it, you could just join the party that is currently in progress. Now, the next one is going to specifically apply to Party Finder, Raid Finder, and that's going to be the undersized party and level sync. So if you have undersized party selected, what this is going to do is actually let you join any instanced dungeon, trial, raid, so be it, as long as it can be completed undersized, and allow you to just hop into that with a party of 2 or more. You can bring however many you want into it. The second thing this is going to do is, as you see, if you don't have undersized party selected, level sync is not highlighted, not even a thing you could select. But when you do select undersized party, you have the option to select level sync. If you don't select level sync, what it's going to do is put you in the dungeon, trial, raid, whatever content it is you selected, at your current level. So you will go in at your current level. So for instance, on my Dark Knight, that's 80. I'll go in at my current eye level, and everybody will be instanced in that way. It makes going through older content a lot easier if you're just trying to farm mounts or armor, weapons, whatever you're trying to farm. If you have undersized party selected and level sync, you can still go in with a party of 2 or more, but it's going to level sync you down. So if you go into a level 60 dungeon, it'll put you at level 60 at the highest possible eye level. Now, if you do, for those of y'all that watch Asmongold, he talks about all the time how he does minimum eye level silence echo. What this means is that the absolute bare minimum eye level a duty can be completed at is what it's going to put you. And then silence echo is for whenever your squad wipes. After a certain amount of wipes, you will get an echo, which increases your health pool, increases damage dealt, so on and so forth. And depending on how many times you wipe will depend on how many echoes you get. So by activating silence echo, it's turning that feature off. So if y'all wipe, y'all aren't getting any extra boosts. And then finally, we have loot rules. So the normal loot rule, the way it's going to work is if you are in a party and at the end you hit the treasure chest, all the loot pops up. The way it's separated into 3 categories. The first is going to be need, the second is going to be greed, and the third is going to be pass. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is that need and greed are the same thing. The only difference being that anybody can greed on an item. However, only an item of your class can you select need on. So for instance, I'm currently on my Dark Knight. If I were to do a dungeon and some tank gear was to drop, so whether it be for Paladin, Gunbreaker, Dark Knight, Warrior, so on and so forth, I could need on that piece of item. However, if I was playing a machinist or machinist, I just telling y'all now, I say machinist as machinist just because I think it sounds cooler. That's the only reason. Anywho, if I was playing machinist and that same piece of tank armor dropped, I would not be able to select need on it. I would have to select greed. And the way the loot pool works is at the time of selecting either need or greed, you are gifted a number from 0 to 99. And the person who rolls the highest number gets that item of loot. Now, if you are on the same job as the item that drops and you select need, you have a higher probability of getting that item. However, it is not a guarantee as you are in the same loot pool as the people who use greed. Now, there is a chance I'm wrong on that, and it might play favorites to those who need over greed. So if I was a tank, a piece of tank armor dropped, I accidentally hit greed, and the rest of the party greeds for it, and I don't get it. That's because somebody rolled a higher greed number. However, it may work in the sense that if I play the tank, roll need on the tank item, everybody else rolls greed, I would still get it because I'm the job and I'm saying I need this piece of equipment. Don't quote me on how that works because truthfully, I think it's the first option. However, I think that, like, I'm going to say I think that's truthfully how it works, but again, I don't fully know. So if y'all could actually clarify that for me down in the comment section, that would be fantastic. All right. So the next option we have here is greed only, and just as the name says, you have two options at the end for loot. You can either greed on it or you can pass on it. There is no need section. And then the last is Loot Master, which is by far the worst way within the community to go about running a dungeon. If you're joining any type of farm party and they have Loot Master selected, just expect for the party leader to divvy out the mounts to the people he queued up with, and then as soon as his friends get it, they're going to give it to themselves, and then that party's going away. Just at all costs, avoid parties of Loot Master. The only time I recommend using it is if you know for a fact you're running a dungeon, only one person in your party needs it, but you know everybody in your party and they don't care, they're just here to help. Then you could put on Loot Master to save everybody getting the trash or for whoever's the last person in the dungeon. But even then, your best bet still really to do either just normal or greed, because if everybody in your party knows only one person needs it, they shouldn't be an asshole about giving it to that person. And then finally, we have the languages. So you'll see that English here is highlighted for me. That's just because that's my native language. Playing on NA servers, obviously I would play in English. However, you can select Japanese. I believe this is Dutch and French. And basically, whenever I go to queue, I could be queued with any of these players. And the only reason I have these selected is for faster queue times. I can't say it helps a whole lot, but I like to think it does. So that's going to wrap up everything you need to know about Duty Finder. Let's go ahead and get into Party Finder and Raid Finder. All right, so in order to get to Party Finder, all you have to do is hit the party icon and then hit Party Finder. It'll be the second option under party members. What this is for is if there's anything you're looking to complete, go ahead, open up Party Finder, see if somebody's currently looking for it as well. So as you can see here, I'm under the All section. This is going to show everything in Party Finder that's available. And honestly, I'm not really going to sit here and tell you all of these because a lot of these past the two raids right here are all just people soliciting houses, not soliciting houses, soliciting the cafe or bar they turn their house into. You'll see a lot of really weird things if you stay under the All section. Truthfully, I just recommend avoiding it. However, if you want a good laugh, you can take a scroll. So first up, Duty Roulettes. This is just people looking to go through all of their roulettes, and you can just click. And if you wanted to join the party, you could just hit straight join party. You could send them a tell to ask them what all they plan on doing, or just gather a little bit more information. And then you just have the back button for if you don't want to do it. And this goes for every piece of content in the game you could set up a party finder for, whether you're just wanting to run fates and you want to form a party for it, you want to do raids, so on and so forth. It is recommended that for high-end content, you do use Duty Finder for raids. And so you'll see that there's a separate raid section right here that I'm currently on. And then there's the high-end duties. This will be how you form parties for all of your extremes, assuming you don't have a current static to play with. You'd want to just go ahead, throw up and actually, you know what? I'll just go ahead and show you. So in order to actually use Party Finder, all you have to do is hit this recruit members button. You're going to get three options up here. Custom match is for PvP. Alliance is strictly for alliance raids. And then you have your normal for everything else. You'll go ahead and under duty where it says none, you'll click it and it'll pop the drop down for everything you could go ahead and select. So let's just say I wanted to run a Savage Alexander raid and just farm for some glamour. I'd go ahead and select raids. I would then hit the drop down underneath it. I would go, just for the sake of speeding this up, Alexander, Soul of the Creator Savage. My objective would be loot. However, you could just do it for duty completion or to practice the raid itself. And then in the comment, this is basically where you would go to explain what it is you're looking for. And you go looking for, you know what? Let's be funny and let's just put, let's get those glams. And then I always remove role restrictions. So essentially, if you keep these on, this is telling everybody you have to have 2 tanks, 2 healers for DPS. However, because for this, we're going to do it unsynced, we can go ahead and remove it. And what that does is allow anybody to come in here and play whatever they want. So if I didn't have this selected and another tank joined and a third tank tried, he wouldn't be able to because our 2 tank slots are already full. The only things open are the 2 healings and 4 DPSs. So if you're doing any content unsynced, I always recommend hitting remove role restrictions. And then that will bring us over to the right side of the map. Search area, you can just leave that alone. It doesn't matter. Conditions, there aren't going to be any for what we're doing. And then duty finder settings is we are going undersized party with loot rules on greed only. And then what I would do is once I'm done, double check, make sure everything looks good. I would go ahead and hit recruit members. And now if we go over to the raid section, you will actually see my party right here. Now, because I don't actually want anybody wasting their time joining me, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that. So that's how party and raid finder is gonna work. If you ever see raid finder get mentioned, just know that it is party finder just for the high end raids, which would be this section right here. And again, this is mainly going to be for all of your ultimates, is when you'll see it get mentioned as raid finder instead of party finder. The next thing I actually want to go ahead and tackle is your HUDs and hotbars. So as you can see, this is what my HUD looks like normally when I'm just playing the game, going through MSQ, side quests, things like that. However, I actually have a second HUD set up for whenever I'm in a duty. So when I'm running a dungeon or anything, I actually have this hotbar set up, or this HUD. And what it does is it gets rid of all my missions, gets rid of my next MSQ quest in the top left, just hides all the unnecessary information that's not going to help me in my duty. And so the way you can actually go about setting that up is you would go to HUD layout. And so HUD layout 1 here is my default layout. As you can see, you can have up to 4. So what you'll actually do is you'll come into, and that's actually the wrong button. You'll actually come into the settings icon for the HUD layouts, and you'll come here and you'll hit execute. And what that would do is actually transfer your HUD from 1 and make a copy of it on slot 2. Once you get to the slot 2 copy, all you're going to want to do is for everything you don't need to see, you'll click it, you'll go into settings, and then you'll see displayed element is checked. You'll want to uncheck it and hit save. And now whenever you get out of the HUD settings, you'll see that none of it is there. Now, if you want to switch back and forth between the two like I am, all you have to do is come into key bindings. You will come into, I believe it's actually system. Yeah. And then you'll see switch HUD layout 1, 2, 3, 4. So Control Z will always take me to my main HUD. Control X will take me to my secondary duty HUD. And that's how I have that set up. And that's really it for HUDs. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, this is the best HUD configuration you can run, because it's going to vary from system to system. And I say that because I'm playing on an ultra wide monitor. I have tons of screen space, and there's just no need for me to sit here and say, oh, you need to copy my layout, when if you have a smaller monitor than I do, it's not going to look as good. So I am not going to sit here and tell you the best way to configure your HUD. But with that, we can actually hop into the second part of this, which is hotbars. Now, hotbars can be edited the exact same way as the HUD actually. So you'll see down here I have hotbar 1, I have hotbar 2, hotbar 3, and hotbar 4. The way I set up my hotbars is I actually use a MMO mouse. So I actually do have them set up in the 3x4 configuration because that's exactly how my MMO mouse is set up. And then for hotbar 1, I just hit the buttons on the side of my mouse. Hotbar 2, I hit control, and hotbar 3, I hit shift. Now for my fourth hotbar down here, this is actually just an extra hotbar. This is just where I throw everything that I use but don't need an actual key binding for. So I have no way to actually access this hotbar, and I actually have to manually click on all of these icons for me to be able to use it. And that's just because, again, I don't need it. It's extra. So things I like to keep on here are just quick access items that I may be doing in a dungeon raid or just running about the world. And all this is it's literally just my fourth hotbar in a 2x6 or 6x2 format. And so again, as you can see, I have all of my mounts that I like to use at the bottom. I keep my orange juice here, and then I have my returns, G-pose, repair, teleports, and my greens for my chocobo, which I need to restock on. So same as before, I am not going to sit here and talk about hotbar configurations with you, just because it's going to vary off personal preference. I like the 3x2 or the 3x4, but that's because I use an MMO mouse. I know some people like the standard 12x1. So that's really just going to come down for personal preference. And then you'll notice that I do have my pet hotbar down here, and then I have hotbars 5 through 9 up here. But you'll see that whenever I exit my hotbar menu, it never actually pops up. The reason for that is because they're not actually currently being used. So if I actually come here and switch to my summoner, and then I go ahead and pull out my pet, you'll see all of a sudden my pet hotbar is now in use. It pops up, and this is actually keybind to my alt key. So alt 1 through 7 will allow me to use my pet. And the reason it goes away again when I switch off, and let's just go back to my Dark Knight, is because again, there's no pet out. There's no reason for that hotbar to appear because there's no key bindings being used at the time. Same reason my 5 through 7 don't appear in my top right corner. There's nothing equipped to them right now. What I do actually want to get into next are the useful settings that I use most often. The first one's actually going to be in character configuration, and it's going to be the movement settings right here under general. I use the legacy type movement, which is strictly camera based. So whichever way my camera is facing is which way it will continue to face, allowing my character to run in a 4-dimensional way in that camera angle. And if I were to actually switch it over to legacy, you'll see that whenever I move with my D-pad to the right, the camera moves with me, and same thing with the left. When I move forward, I will run forward. However, when I move back, I will back up with the camera facing the same way. The reason I actually use legacy is so I could just straight run backwards with my camera facing this way. So let's just say our boy Jace Crow here is a boss, and he pops a mechanic towards me. I'm able to just run away, and I don't have to instead do this slow back up to a camera turn to run away. All I have to do is just hit S on my keyboard, and we're sprinting out of there. So that's the reason I like to use legacy mode, and honestly, I couldn't recommend it enough. It took me a while to get used to it first, just because the only way to actually move your camera really is by holding the right trigger on your mouse, and then you can run in any direction and move your camera. So if you wanted, you could kind of treat it like standard mode whenever you have right click enabled. However, once it's disabled, you're 4-dimensional moving. The last setting under character configuration I want to mention is the skip playback of previously viewed scenario cutscenes. The reason I mention this is basically whenever you go out to grind any type of glamours, weapons, mounts, things like that, whenever you load into that dungeon, raid, trial, whatever it may be, you're going to get hit with the same cutscenes every time. Having the skip playback of previously viewed scenario cutscenes turned on is actually just going to skip them for you. So you'll see your screen go black and then you'll just load straight into the dungeon, and same for when the boss is defeated. You won't have any cutscenes play that typically would. Now, this is not going to work on the Praetorium. Y'all should know this by now, but just to emphasize, turning this on will not allow you to skip the cutscenes in the Praetorium. It is mandatory that you watch those, because half the time you have about 3 new players whenever you get thrown into that main scenario duty roulette who are going through it for their first time, and they don't want you to rush through that content when a new player is just trying to sit there and watch all the cutscenes. So those can't be skipped, period. Just turn on your Netflix and enjoy the free XP. So up next, we're actually going to go into the system configuration, and this one is completely personal choice. I just like it. So you'll go into system configuration. You'll want to come to these 2 file icons, which is your theme settings. So if you see, all of my themes are actually blue, regardless of what I pull up. It all has a blue background to it. The reason for that is because my theme is set to classic. So everything's just going to look blue, and honestly, I like the aesthetic. However, you do have a light theme, which will make everything brown. I said it would make everything brown, but it did not make anything brown. That changed absolutely nothing. Strange. It says changes saved, but they didn't save. Anyway, you also have a dark theme too. And again, all this is going to do is change my blue box to this black one. Or if I go light, it'll be this light and dark brown. And then, of course, if you go classic, you're just going to get the blue. I prefer the blue, so I'll always stick with classic. Nothing super crazy, just to add a little bit more personalization to your UI. So, for this last section, this is going to be our useful features. So things you might not actually know that you could do in the game. Okay, so right now I am in Gongos. This is where you go to enter the Bajan Southern Front. As you can see, in order to get there, I have to talk to this guy. Well, instead of trying to click him, which honestly isn't too hard, and out of fear of clicking some random people trying to click on him, what you can actually do is hold, that was Z. You can actually hold X and then click on him to target him directly. So you'd want to hold X, right click, and you'll, regardless of how many people are in front of him, you'll be able to speak with whatever NPC you want. And this goes for every NPC. So if you pull up to any market, let's say you're in Limsa trying to look at the market board, just hold X. It will get rid of every other character's names to where you literally cannot click on them. Regardless of what you want, you can only click on the NPCs, and you'll be able to access the market board that way. I just came here because I have missions here and stuff, so this is probably what I'll be doing once this video is done. So the next useful feature I want to go over is in your character select screen. So if you hit C on your keyboard, it'll pop up your character to where you can go and edit all of your gear. Now, let's say you've just finished running a dungeon, you got some new gear, but you don't know if it's better than what you currently have equipped. Well, that's where this little shiny, sparkly paladin dude comes in, where this is the recommended gear button. So upon hitting this button, it will show you all the gear that you can equip that is currently better than what you're wearing. And what this will essentially do is just put on the max eye level that you have available to you in your armory chest. It will not equip things from your inventory. So if you do have a better item in your inventory, the only way you can go ahead and equip that is by opening your inventory, right-clicking it and hitting equip, or right-clicking it and hitting place in armory chest. And then at that time, you'd want to cancel out of this and then reopen the recommended gear and you'd see it appear. However, I don't have any in my inventory, so I can't really display that well. And then from this point, all you're going to want to do is hit equip, and you'll see that all of the new higher leveled gear is actually attached to my character. So that is a super useful feature for a lot of new players that go through dungeons continually and just need or greed on whatever gear they want that's currently better. Instead of having to click it all individually, just hit the recommended gear icon and you will actually go ahead and be able to get that equipped. Okay, the absolute last thing I want to go over here is you'll actually see that in here under my light party, next to the left of everybody's name, you'll actually see numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What those numbers are actually stating is the anemone order for the enemies you're currently battling against. So essentially, whoever's currently has aggro drawn, if they were to die, I would be first up in the attack order of the next monsters. And then if I were to die, it would go to the next tank. If he was to die, it'd go to the healer. If they were to die, they'd move to the next healer. And then lastly, hit the DPS. So whenever you're in a dungeon and you see those numbers next to the party like that, that's all that is saying, is that if the person who's currently drawing the aggro dies, then number 2 will be drawing the anemone next. Another good thing to mention here is that if you look at the enemy list, you'll see that there's about 4 enemies with green circles. That means they are not focused on you. They couldn't give 2 fucks about what you're doing and the little bit of damage you're doing to them at the time. The yellow icon means that once that enemy who he's currently targeting dies, will be focused on you. And then if you get a red circle, all the red circle means is that you're the ones they're focusing on. So if you see enemies with red circles, so see how I have that red circle right there with this guy, it means I'm his target of focus. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed the content, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Let me know in the comment section down below if there is any features that you find useful that I may have skipped over. And with that, I appreciate you watching today's episode of To the Aetheryte, and I will see y'all next time.